my God, there's an arrow coming right for me. I gotta get out of here. Wait, what if it's my true love? Oh, I'm hit. Nope, that was just a regular arrow.
You're listening to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast with Suzanne Soul, episode 38.
Hey, you gorgeous divine lovers, and welcome to the Spiritual Shitshow podcast, where we get into the trash hole the healing and spiritual awakening journey can be. I'm your host, Suzanne Soul, comedian, lifelong spiritual student, and I'm sharing some of the sparkly trinkets I've learned along my journey that have helped me, and that I hope help you too. This is part 6 of that Time the Power of Myth Blew My Fucking Mind series, where I talk about the power of myth, where journalist Bill Moyers had 6 amazeballs conversations with author, teacher, and mythologist Joseph Campbell, and how it blew my motherfucking mind. Because the power of myth blew my fucking mind, y'all. And BT dubs, deep love and gratitude to Bill Moyers, who recently passed away, for sharing Campbell's work with all of us who might not have been exposed to it in our lifetimes, and for the decades of his own compassionate and daring work as a journalist and a writer. So in this episode, we're talking about episode 5 of the actual Power of Myth series, and this is part 6 of my series on the power of myth, because I did an intro episode, and yes, this could have been more thought out, okay? I realize that now, but here we are. Okay? So let's enjoy it. Anywho, what we're talking about right here and right now is love and the goddess. One of my absolute faveskis episodes from the Power of Myth series, which, of course, I am doing as a 2-parter, because each of these topics deserves its own fucking chitty chat. So as Joseph Campbell says, when Moyers suggests they talk about love at the beginning of the episode, let's talk about love. Fine. And let me tell you something. They weren't talking about the, you have quite a nice booty, and I would like to take it dancing, and maybe more, kind of love. Nor were they talking about the kind of love that says, my father says this guy is in a great line of business, and he owns a lot of property. No, in Love and the Goddess, they were talking about the real deal. The kind of love that unzips your soul and dares you to be emotionally and spiritually naked. The kind of romantic love where people see into each other's innards. You know, darling, it's your spleen I love the most. Well, you know, I've always been a pancreas guy, but I met you and your kidneys, and I'll never be the same. So when Moyers asks Campbell where they should start their convo about love, Joe says, well, I would say let's start with the troubadours. And now you might be like, the troubadours? Do you mean like the folk singer-songwriters of the 60s who changed the face of music? And I would be like, no, girl. The troubadours from medieval times. You know, like those dudes who frolic and spit rhymes at the Renaissance fairs while you walk around gnawing on your barbecue turkey leg. Those guys. I know, they're kind of cute, but Campbell wasn't actually talking about those guys at the Renaissance fairs because they're just pretending to be troubadours. The actual troubadours were alive in like the 1100s, so they would be dead by now. The actual troubadours were a group of composer poets who flounced around southern France during the 12th century, aka the Middle Ages. Which, as an aside, when we get into like the year 4000, they'll probably have to change the name of the Middle Ages to something like the very extra early Middle Ages, or the ages formerly known as Middle. Anywho, the troubadours were known for their lyrical poetry and songs, often focused on themes of courtly love and chivalry. In the beginning of Love and the Goddess, Campbell recites a poem by French troubadour Giraud de Bonnet that exemplifies this view of love the troubadours brought about in the currently still Middle Ages. So through the eyes, love attains the heart. For the eyes are the scouts of the heart, and the eyes go reconnoitering for what it would please the heart to possess. And when they are in full accord and firm, all three in one resolve, at that time perfect love is born, from what the eyes have made welcome to the heart. For as all true loves know, love is perfect kindness, which is born, there is no doubt, from the heart and the eyes. Basically, the Troubs were the first ones in the West that considered love in the sense that we think of it now, as a person-to-person relationship, and also saw person-to-person love as spiritual, not love of the Godhead, which had been the prime theme, but love between individuals as a spiritual experience. Campbell explained this kind of love as the seizure that comes in recognizing your soul's counterpart in the other person, which seems like it might mimic being tased. Kidding aside, that sounds like it could be somewhat enjoyable, if not terrifying, and miraculous even, a slice of heaven here on earth with a side of the shakes. But Campbell also knew that love wasn't just all fun and games and seizures. He knew that real mythic love is actually a transformation machine that will fuck your ass up. In the best way, of course, but still, it will fuck it up. Because love, in the mythic sense, doesn't let you stay safe. It doesn't care about your 5-year plan or your spreadsheets of do's and don'ts. It wants to devour you until what's left is something raw and radiant and unfuck-withable. This kind of love fuckery is what we often hear about when we hear about twin flame love. The kind of love that rips out your heart, eats it, regurgitates it, and then gives it back to you saying, "What? It's still good." And 20 isn't actually lying, because if you allow the twin flame process to rip through you, although it will feel like having your entire being gutted and remodeled, you will expand, grow, and open in your heart and mind exponentially. But just FYI, in many twin flame experiences, people don't always end up with their twin flames because that twin explosion came along to burn it all. Your walls, your fears, and limiting views of love, etc., etc. Now you might be saying, sounds like a wonderful time. Where do I get one of these so-called twin flames? Is there a twin flame marketplace where I can schedule one? No, babe. They just come out of nowhere, like a terrorist attack. Anywho, as I was saying before I went on my twin flame tangent, 'twas that in the medieval times the idea of love became more than just being about sexy time or about marriage for property or family duty and alliances. This new version of love wasn't about choosing someone because you had to, but because your soul fucking said so. Campbell noted that it was curious to him that the idea of love as a person-to-person relationship had been such a subversive idea up to that point in time in the West. But it was. I'm thinking it may have been our pals' fear and superstition that could have held us back. You know what I'm saying? Because prior to the troubadours bringing us this idea of soulmate type of love, romantic love and partnerships were viewed in other ways. One way was erotic love, the kind of love that Campbell described as the zeal of the organs for each other. You know, when you have the hots for someone you know is no good for you, but that animal attraction is something you can't control. This kind of lusty love is captured in the Greek and Roman mythologies of Eros and Cupid. Eros, the Greek god of love, lust, and sex, is typically portrayed as a handsome youthful figure with a bow and a bunch of arrows. He shoots at people to make them fall madly in love. Don't make me do it. Don't make me do it. Ooh, I'm hit. You're gonna make me do it. Eros is the Greek word for sexual attraction and passion between two people, hence the word erotic. And actually, The ancient Greeks considered eros to be quite a perilous version of love due to the loss of control people experienced via their primal impulse to procreate. And so the Greeks didn't believe eros was something that could sustain a relationship long term, since lust is like buying a car. It depreciates. But it is really fun the first time you drive it. Waka waka. Now, you might be more familiar with Eros's Roman counterpart, Cupid, a chubby Italian baby with wings who coincidentally also shoots arrows that make people fall in love. I can't imagine what it must have been like to be alive during those times. Every time you see an arrow coming at you, you're like, oh my God, there's an arrow coming right for me. I gotta get out of here. Wait, what if it's my true love? Ugh, I'm hit. Nope, that was just a regular arrow. Which, in all honesty, may explain the fear we sometimes have in our modern world when things start to get serious with someone. There's probably something in our DNA that's like, how can I be sure if this is love or just a regular arrow? I need to think about this because 3 lives ago, I chose wrongly. I mean, we've all had that one relationship or situationship that left us feeling like we were almost murdered within an inch of our lives. And of course, some people actually do get murdered, but that's a conversation for another time. Cupid is the god of desire, attraction, and physical affection. And a person who is shot by Cupid's arrow is filled with that Rick James and Tina Marie fire and desire. But wait, there's more. Cupid and arrows both carry two kinds of arrows, gold and lead, and each arrow has a different effect. Golden arrows evoke love. Lead arrows cause repulsion. A person struck by the golden arrow is filled with uncontrollable desire for the other person. But someone struck by the lead arrow just wants to get the hell away from that guy. And they say the mischievous Cupid sometimes finds 2 people who say have just met and are getting to know each other. And that little sneak shoots a golden arrow at one person and a lead arrow at the other one. And so one person is like, oh my God, dude, I have met the love of my fucking life. And the other one is like, dude, they are cringe. And so we have the most enjoyable of all the loves, unrequited love, aka when you love and they do not love you back. Good times. Okay, so another kind of love is spiritual love, aka the love thy neighbor love, of which Campbell says, again, it doesn't matter who the person is. It's your neighbor, so you must have that kind of love. And finally, there is love and partnership that is based on duty to family or religion, which again, all of these versions of experiencing love have their place, as Campbell makes it known that he is not judging any of these versions of love. In fact, he says, the usual marriage in traditional cultures is arranged for by the families. It's not a person-to-person decision at all. And this is true to this day in many parts of the world. This is not to say that in arranged marriages of this kind, there is no love, because there is a lot of love. There's family love and a rich love life on that level. But the point Campbell is making is that in all of these versions or experiences of love, the love doesn't come about based on who the person is, but based on other factors. This person-to-person love exalts the idea of love from the zeal of the organs for each other, from duty and the need to be accepted by society for survival, to the heart, the spiritual heart, where there is no logic, no reason, but obviously, with all the poems about love, there is rhyme. But I digress. Moyers starts Love and the Goddess by mentioning one of Campbell's most eloquent essays, The Mythology of Love, where he talks about mythologies of the spiritual realm as origin stories of love. In the essay, Campbell invites us into the ancient sacred terrain of love and begins not with a lover's glance or first kiss, but with the primal story of creation itself. Campbell recalls the Upanishad, an ancient Vedic text that tells of a time when there was only one being alone, until it said, give me a second. And then this being split itself into male and female. And from that act, the desire to reunite and experience the recognition of your other half became a thing. And all the creatures of the earth were born. In that myth, love is not a social contract. It is the pull toward reunion. Not to be confused with a high school reunion, where you go home afterwards and tell all your friends how much younger you look than everyone else who was there. We all do it. In Love and the Goddess, Joseph Campbell shares two different Grail stories that, at first, sound like totally separate myths, but they're actually two sides of the same spiritual pep talk. First, he tells of the story of how the Holy Grail came to Earth. Apparently, this one time, God and Lucifer were having a little tiff, and the angels were divided. So the neutral angels, the ones who didn't pick a side in the war between good and evil, brought in the Holy Grail. The Grail came through the middle path. It didn't come to reward the righteous or punish the wicked. It came as a symbol of something deeper than duality. Love that transcends opposites. It's not about who's right and who's wrong. It's that deeper current that says, there's something real beneath all the noise. And that reminded me of a Rumi quote I just love. Out beyond the ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. That field, that's where the Grail lives. But Campbell doesn't just float us off into the mystical ether. He brings us right back down into a brutal human-level parable. In the second story, the Grail King, a beautiful young man who inherits his title, aka he didn't earn it, charges out of the castle yelling, Amor, the war cry of love, and runs smack into a pagan warrior, a Muslim knight. They both strike, and the Grail King kills the pagan, but the pagan's lance castrates the Grail King, which, ouch. And here's the kicker. On the pagan's lance, the word Grail is written. Campbell says that what this myth is showing us is the cost of splitting spirit from nature. The Grail King, representing a more formal and rigid style of tradition that had separated the spiritual from the earthly, is wounded and cut off from his vitality, from life force itself. Meanwhile, the pagan, the so-called outsider, the man from the suburbs of Eden, is the one whose natural instincts actually carried the Grail. And that's the deeper message. The Grail isn't found by rising above your humanity. It's found by living in and acknowledging your humanity. The messy, embodied, unfiltered kind. The love that comes from wholeness, not perfection. The spiritual life that blooms from nature, not rules. Two stories, one Grail, one truth. You don't get there by being right. You get there by being real and true. And where is there? Real love, I imagine. And I guess the idea of being true to your truth caught on, because love from one's own experience became the ideal of love in the Western world. In the story of Tristan and Isolde, the triumph of Tristan's view of love and vision of love was the beginning of romantic love in the West as libido over credo. The credo, what we are told to believe, how to live, where your loyalties should be, and no questioning anything, do as you're told or else. And libido, the impulse to life that comes from the heart, the organ of opening up to another, to love, to life, a human quality, as opposed to the animal qualities which primarily have to do with self-interest. In the story of Tristan and Isolde, Tristan is sent as a messenger to retrieve Isolde for the king. But Tristan and Isolde mistakenly drink the love potion meant for Isolde and her husband-to-be, and they fall deeply in love with each other. And then obvs, they're totes fucked. But the story represents the choice of heart over head, free will and autonomy, because Tristan is like, whatever is going to happen to me, I accept it, because I am all in my feelings right now. And this shit is my fucking life, motherfuckers. I mean, I've been in those relationships. The one where your heart cracks open like a geode and all the glittery bits spill out, and then you're left holding your broken open self. The opening of the heart is the connection of the human to the spiritual experience of being alive. So we can see how love is a part of the very fabric of our existence and how deeply it affects our spiritual and human experience, not just for love's sake, which obvs is amazeballs, but it is also the antidote to freeing oneself from the prison of the mind, which, untempered by the heart, can become mostly a survival and control machine. And that doesn't sound like much fun. It reminds me of a phrase I once heard spiritual teacher Ram Dass mention. The mind makes a wonderful servant and a terrible master. The heart not only tempers the mind, but by letting the heart lead and guide the mind, the heart can bring us the true and full experience of being alive. Campbell said, I think that's the great thing in the West, the validity of the individual's experience of what humanity is, what life is, what values are against the monolithic system. The troubadours elevated the experience of love to a spiritual path and a path of authenticity. And although the beauty of love's highs are as painful as the heartbreak, Campbell says that the paradox of every real heartbreak is that love hurts not because it fails, but because it succeeds in piercing the ego, in undoing our separation from our nature, in burning us back to the truth. And still we must walk into that fire. Love is the burning point of life, Campbell says, and since all life is sorrowful, so is love. And the stronger the love, the more the pain, but love bears all things. It is the pain of being truly alive. In Campbell's mythology, love is an invitation to bare your soul and the potential for a wound that awakens, a mirror that shatters the self so something larger and more expansive can emerge from our beings. Which makes sense why it's so tempting to settle for the watered-down version of love, the one with matching bathrobes and weaponized morality, because this one sounds like quite the ordeal. But we weren't meant for that watered-down version, girl. Not really. We were meant for the love that kills us just enough to wake us up. The kind where your soul shows up in a human body and goes, hey, babe, this one will burn you clean. So let's get ready to rumble. OMG, you guys, we're going to get into the gorgeous feminine, the goddess, in part 7 of my series on the power of myth and the second part of my chitty chat on the power of myth episode, Love and the Goddess. I know. You're probably like, I was told there'd be no math. But we're doing it because the goddess deserves her own fucking show. So I cannot wait to meet you there. All right, y'all, this has been the Spiritual Shitshow podcast. My name is Suzanne Soul. I love you so dang much. It stings a little, but it's totes worth it. Roll it, my darling.